Yes, welcome back to Rail's House. I've been working quite hard over the last couple of weeks, doing something of a monotonous job all day, but it was something that had to be done. Nobody else seemed to want to do it. Anyway, I've been doing that for a couple of weeks. But I've got 3 or 4 days off, and I'm certainly not going to work tomorrow. So I thought, well, it's time really to catch up on Rail's House. And yeah, we're still with the Genco, or Genco. I'm now told it's pronounced Genco. All right, Genco. We'll leave it at that. Pinball. And a couple of things I've been looking at. One was that thing. It's coming back again. But these are the bumper tops, or bumper caps, on the pinball. But, you know, they're getting on in years now. And it's not easy to see what the original colours were, because of course they're affected by sunlight and UV and everything else. But then when you look underneath, you can see actually it was quite green originally, but it's yellowed on the outside. And naturally you can't buy those, and they're not even a complete semicircle, are they? You know, a semi-sphere. They're not even that. So I decided what I might do, because these are threaded. Can you see that thread in the middle? Eventually that thread goes, and then you find you can't screw these back on top of the bumpers anymore. They're getting on, and as I say, you can't buy them anymore. So I thought what I'd do, I would make some. How are we going to do that? Well, really you've got to look at what they did to start with. It's mostly clear, but it's got, yeah, because I can almost see through to the back, but it's got a green tint added to it. So I thought, well, I'll do these out of resin or acrylic, whichever, and I got myself a box of these, all different colours. They are alcohol-based tints in just about every colour of the rainbow, and of course you can mix them as well. There is a green in there, and eventually we'll find one. Rest assured, there is a green in there somewhere. Oh, did I just see green? Yeah, there we go. There's a darker one somewhere as well. Like I say, you can mix these up. But I thought, well, we'll have a go. And I've got to make a silicone mould as well. So what I'm thinking is, I will take 3 of these off the playfield. I'll make a shallow box for them to sit in, and they can sit in that way up, just level with the silicone mould. Then when the silicone mould's set, I'll be left with the imprint of that, won't I? And then I can fill it with resin. It's an experiment, and hopefully in the next Rail's House, shall we do it, well, not exactly live, but undoctored, and then if I make a mess of it, you'll be able to watch. Right, so that's what I was doing with those. Back to this thing. Right, well, during the week, I made a short video for the Facebook pre-war pinball group. Good group if you're into pre-war stuff. I can see why people like pre-war pinballs. They've got an elegance and charm all of their own. You know, unfettered by bleeps and the world of Mario. Do you know what I mean? A simpler time. The jump between bagatelle and the all singing, all dancing virtual pinballs that you can get these days. But I've been looking at this thing just generally, and I have got a couple of these that a guy's going to sell me, hopefully, at some point when he gets to his lockup. But in the meantime, for a bit of fun, I thought, let's see if we can make one. I won't say it'd be the most cost-effective thing I've ever done. These are the actual electrical contacts. There's 3 on these Genco scoring ratchet wheels, and anybody that's owned a Genco will know what a pain in the rear end these things are when they start playing up. Either the springs break or the contacts go, or they're just awful in a lot of ways. They are as they get older anyway. But I discovered, right, because these are all they're all soldered on the backs of these and then joined together with a piece of braided copper to ensure continuity. Anyway, I took all the solder off it and took it out. So if we can get the pin out of the spring, Right, and you see that spring? Up against the head of the contact, the spring's narrower. Can you see that? And you can get these springs, well, you can get something very close. They're 4mm springs, and they're in quite a narrow gauge of wire, 0.2, 0.3, something, 0.2 ideally, because there's quite a soft spring. But I have got some suitable spring coming at some point. But what I did do, I don't lose the spring. No, it's still trying to run for it. Across the internet, I found these. These are copper rivets, and they are 3/4 of an, if you're going to look for them, this is what you want to look for. They are 3/4 of an inch long, and they are 3/32ths, which is something like, I'll put a micrometer, you know, to get the diameter of these things, and there's something like 2.38 mil. But as luck would have it, if I take one of these and pop it in there, this is difficult to do one-handed. This is the trouble when you're doing videos, isn't it? Right, they are an absolutely perfect fit with no lateral play. There's enough room for them to move, but there's no play in it. Whereas if I take the original one and pop that in there, and it's done a few years, and they weren't that great a fit to start with, but this has got a lot of movement compared to the other one. You see what I mean? Right, so basically I'm going to replace all these contacts, and I'm also going to fabricate the wheel. So I measured that across at the highest point, i.e. that tooth there against one on the other side, and it's 50mm. That's fluke, isn't it? And you can buy copper blanks at 50mm, a couple of them for about 5 or 6 quid. Trust me, it's worth paying it. You don't want to be cutting those out. Now the thing is, all these teeth around, they're not like a regular gear wheel, are they? Because it's a ratchet. But there are 24 of them. So to be able to, and I couldn't find anybody locally that could cut those for me, other than it being stamped out. That was probably how they were made, excuse me, originally. So I would have to divide this into 24 segments. And whilst, you know, I can be accurate with lots of things, I have that, you know, feeling deep down, I should give this to somebody who really knows what they're doing when it comes to scribing up metal. So I'm sending this to my friend Roger Ball in Clacton, because he's just the best machine man I know. He's done an awful lot. I've also got a friend here, Graham, but he's going off to Tenerife. Lucky for some, isn't it? So there'd be no point in asking Graham. And I don't think really Graham sort of can quite see what I'm trying to do here. Anyway, so I'm going to divide this off into 24 segments, or Roger is, and he's also going to make that central boss for me. It's out of brass by the look of it. And he'll get his calipers on it or whatever and measure it and make that, and so it's a press fit. But because this was originally steel and copper coated, I just thought, well, forget steel copper coated, just get copper. So I got it slightly thicker, which isn't going to make any difference on this side. It would on this side, because the depth of that is critical, because there's a shouldered bolt that goes through it, and you don't want it too sloppy or too tight. So he'll make those. So as long as the internal diameter and the height of that is correct, that'll be fine. But because it's copper, that means, now bearing in mind, if you've ever done any plumbing, you know that brass fittings and copper pipe will pop a pipe. That's not easy, is it? Brass fittings and copper pipe will solder together. So I'm thinking, right, okay, so if we can get that as a press fit in there, I can add some solder on the back as well, just to make sure it holds it tight. These things that retain the contact pins, I measured those up as well, and basically what I need is 3mm brass pipe with an internal diameter of 2.5 mil. So it's quite thin-walled brass. But I thought, rather than, because Genco obviously they put them in, you know, like rivets. I thought, well, I won't do that. What I'll do is in the correct place on the new cog, I will drill 3mm holes, and when this is flat on a table, I can pop the brass tube in it at the right height and solder that in as well. Because this wheel's not going to get hot when it's running, you know. Not that hot anyway. It's not going to get cherry red. So those I can make. As I say, I need help with Roger from that, and Roger's also going to mark it out, so I've still got to file it. I'll try to put it in a bit of a tedious job, but at least he'll mark it out and make it accurate for me, and I'll have new contacts with no play in them. This, I thought, could probably do that with nuts and bolts, to be honest, because it's only a stop, it's not that crucial. And this piece here, this bit, that is actually steel, and they've obviously spot welded that on. But I thought, well, what I can use brass angle iron for that, because you can get it in small pieces, and solder that on as well, because I say the whole thing's going to be copper. So I may be the first person in the world to ever remake a Genco scoring gear. So that is that. Oh, and while it's fresh in my head, I made a spaghetti bolognese tonight. And you know, there's a call for tomato puree, isn't there? And I've got a tube, and I thought, I don't want to open that tube because, and we all know what it's like, you only need a bit of tomato puree, and then after a few days, that puree's gone off because, of course, the air's got to it. So I thought, I don't really want to open that. I know what I'll do. I'll get one of those instant tomato soups, you know, the powdered ones, and just bung that in instead of the puree. And do you know what? It worked. So rather than mess about with puree, just get that dried tomato soup. You get 4 sachets in a box. Most of those big supermarkets do it. Forget the puree and use that. Oh, and there was one other thing that cropped up in the week, and something from my past. When I was in my 20s, I used to live in a place called Colchester, which was originally a Roman town. And it was in the days when I was literally renting a room. But there was a guy next door called Tony. Now, he was retired at the time, and like a lot of retired gentlemen, the pension doesn't quite pay enough for what they want to do. So he used to go around boot sales, picking up bits of junk for, you know, virtually nothing, and then go and find somebody to sell it to. And that was Tony. And I bought a few things off him, and I liked him as a guy. He's in a retirement home now. But anyway, he said to me, because he came from the East End of London, and he said, I don't know if I think it might have been a relative, had a record shop. Maybe it was a relative that had died. I don't know. But they were shutting this record shop. He said, there's loads of records upstairs. I said, well, what sort are they? He said, you know, all sorts. And which is a bit vague, isn't it? And I said, well, look, I'll give you 20 quid. You know, just bring me a stack back and I'll just take a chance on it. And there were all sorts there. But this was one of the records that he brought back. And it's by a guy called Ike Isaacs. Those that are into jazz, and I have to say I'm not. I like progressive jazz. I'm not really into traditional jazz. But this album came out in 1968. And I started to play it and I thought, I have never heard a record as well produced, and just it was brilliant. And I lost it over the years. And I was having a conversation with a friend on Facebook because he was playing some jazz by a modern artist. And I said, I've never forgotten this Ike Isaacs album. And I'd looked for it in the past, never found it. And I thought, take a chance, just go on eBay, see if it comes up. And it did. It was the first time ever I've seen it up for sale. It has never, ever gone on CD. I can tell you that. It's on the Morgan label. I think the company itself still exists. It's probably been sold several times. And some of the stuff that they had on vinyl they have released on CD, but not this. Anyway, this is what it sounds like. clean, isn't it? You know, for 68 jazz. I really liked it. And great shame that it's not on CD. And the only reason I'm able to play it in this video is because I don't think it's even been flagged up on copyright, because it's so old. It's not, you know, it's obviously not in their catalogue. And had it been released on CD, I think it probably would have done. But if you ever see this album anyway, I like Ike Isaacs. You won't be disappointed. I think there's something about some of those, you know, well-produced records in the 1960s. The stereo separation was phenomenal, and it was beautifully recorded. I'll have to find out who recorded it. Ike Isaacs is gone, of course, but there is not a bad track on this album. The one you're hearing is Blue, or you heard, was Blue well, you pronounce it. But I like After Hours, I like Paris Fashion, and there's a few others on here I like. But I missed it, and I finally got it again. There you go. I like Ike.